Alrighty, welcome to this week's Ask Us Anything. Has anyone got any news?
I know what you want. Okay. Rob sent me to Woolworths at Baldivis because they've got a Tesla Semi.
Nice.
With the
And what's
Model
that on top?
S. Model S.
Very
But
nice.
I also happened to find, while I was there, a Model 3.
Is that a blue one or is that a black one?
Now, they're both blue, but they're different shades of blue.
Oh,
Oh,
that could be a bit of off-label blue, perhaps, like not quite the original.
yeah.
Oh, excellent. So, welcome after a while, Martina and Paul, and Andrew, for that matter,
Hey, there you go.
and John and Richard.
Hello, Harold and members. Yeah, I've got a few quick things to ask. I sent a. I'm just getting in quick here because so I can get out again. I sent a email to the Try Booking site about the Coolin visit today.
Yes.
And just had a few questions to ask, but maybe I'm not sure who's organising it all. So maybe when they come.
No, that's cool. I know a bit about that. So
my main query, there are three queries I wrote in that email about accommodation, about the route. I can't remember what I specified in my email, whether via Brookton or Williams.
yes,
and was there a starting point, or do we just meet down there at 2 p.m? And the third question was about, and the most important question was about the charging and I think my desperate need for a three-phase pigtail. Otherwise, I think I'll have to cancel my booking.
okay.
So I need to buy. I'd like to buy. So I've got my own three-phase pigtail, and where do I buy that from?
Okay, it just so happens that we've got a couple in stock, so you can buy it from us. So what I will do is put on the chat my phone number if you haven't already got it.
I think I've already got it from the T2, yeah.
Yep,
so can I just confirm, Harold, that pigtail will latch into one end of your T2 and then into a three-phase?
No, that's not how you use it.
Okay.
I don't have it here, but actually I've got it downstairs in my car. But basically what you do is you plug one end into a three-phase outlet, and then the other end into your your Generation 2 EVSE.
Have I got one of those with my Model 3?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And so do all S and X owners who bought their cars since about mid last year, roughly. So it'll plug, the other part of the tail plugs straight into your UMC, and you can charge your car at 32 amps single phase, which will add about 50 kilometers an hour, or maybe 40 kilometers an hour per hour. There is, okay, so, and then tackling the accommodation, you need to check with either the Coolin Motel and book a room if they're not booked out, or there is accommodation at, if you wanted to do camping, which would be a bit of a different adventure, you can stay at the Coolin Caravan Park. But the motel.
And what about that camp accommodation?
We haven't booked that yet at this stage. When Rob Dean comes on, which he should be a little bit later, that's a possibility. It's dormitory style accommodation.
Yeah, look, that's fine. I'm just,
So, go on, Ashley.
Sorry, can I interrupt there for a second?
Yes.
I've booked a room for the day, but unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make it. So if Martina wants, she can use my name or whatever, and it's just in the Coolin Hotel.
I don't want to go to the Coolin Hotel. I read some shocking reports about that on TripAdvisor.
Right.
Terrible.
You can't. Oh, right. Okay, because that's.
So I'm happy with that camp dormitory. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Close to all those three-phase pins.
Yes, there is a bit of other news as far as the charging's concerned. It's getting a lot closer to being confirmed, but that is a crazy contraption that
Wow.
a couple other guys have seen photos of, or well, not of the actual charger being mounted on it. That's not actually my charger, but it looks just like it. So I'll be taking 99% probability that I'll be taking something like that to Coolin and plugging it in to possibly even a 50 amp outlet, which means it'll be able to charge cars at about 36 kilowatts, which isn't quite nameplate, but it's pretty good. So there'll be no issue with charging cars up quite quickly, even on the first day, let alone the second morning or the next morning. So that thing lives. It's pretty crazy and wild, but yeah, it will very likely be at Coolin. Now, even if it's not, we have an arrangement where I've got an EVSE splitter, so you can basically have 3 cars charging simultaneously on the 1-3 phase outlet, which means that 3 Model 3s can get 40 k's an hour at one spot. So I'm not sure how many, Ken's not on yet. I'm not sure how many cars we've got coming. I think it's about 6 at this stage, possibly 7, maybe 8. And we've got a couple of different sites. I think Rob Dean's going to charge at the, there's a recreation, there's an oval basically with 3-phase outlet, and he can charge at 22 kilowatts. So he'll charge quite quickly. So charging, Martina, is actually not an issue at all. So there's plenty of charging for all of us.
Yeah, so that's at Coolin, but I guess with my standard Model 3, it's actually getting there. So I need to be assured of.
Yes, so with an SR Plus.
Hence the pigtail, yeah.
Yes, so as far as routes go, some of us are going to go via Williams, and there is a HPWC there, which has now been fixed. So that'll charge, I think it's 16 amps 3-phase. So that's full rate for your Model 3.
So I would still need the pigtail for that though, wouldn't I?
Yes, and we'll have, yes. So whether you have one in your car at, when you leave, which is highly likely, or whether we go in convoy or some of us go in 2 separate routes. I think one route was via
Williams and Wickerton.
No, not Boddington, sorry.
Williams and Wickerton.
Yeah.
That was the one advertised. Brookton and Williams.
Brookton, sorry, Brookton. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
So there is a charger at Brookton.
Yeah. Is that reliable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was used.
And that will need the 3-phase as well, won't it?
No, type 2 to type 2. T2.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And the Williams one has a HPWC and also a 3-phase outlet. And what we'll probably do is bring a old-fashioned UMC, so you can charge at 16 amps 3-phase. So basically 2 cars can charge at Williams simultaneously at 11 kilowatts, and 1 car can charge at Brookton. The main thing is that with an SR Plus, it's only 270 kilometers, I think, which you'll be able to do quite comfortably. It is from the CBD. 269 k's. That's a direct route, which is actually via Brookton. So at 270 kilometers, if you charge your car to like at least 95%, you'll have 0 issues. In fact, you should have some experience with that yourself, Martina, with going to Kalbarri. So, oh, you're not on mute. You got to unmute. Sorry, can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trying to block the TV out in the background. Yeah, no, that's right. I really don't want to go anywhere without a 3-phase outlet
Yes.
of pigtail. Yeah.
Brookton is basically in between, so I'll just bring up the map.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I know that area quite well.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of coming home from Coolin to Cunderdin, where my family is, and then all my extended family is, and then down to Perth. So if I've got a 3-phase, I'll be right. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and you will. So if you give me a call tomorrow, I
Okay,
can
I'll do that.
put
Yeah.
out. And
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, so that'll be fine. I'll just go back to share screen, and we've got Coolin, I think, is about that is here.
Yeah.
So yes, the one route is via Brookton, and the other
Yeah.
one is
Down a bit
Williams.
further south. Yeah.
And there's actually a charger at Narrogin, although that's yeah. So, but via Brookton's the shortest way. And as far as starting and stopping, we haven't really planned to sort of meet in Perth. It's probably better just for everyone to, well, that's probably something we might firm up depending on how many cars there are and what kind of cars. So obviously if you're in a long range 3 or any S and X, you'll be fine. And like I said, even the SR Plus is perfectly fine to do 270 Ks, even without charging at all. And like I said, when we're down there, there's actually at the what they call the public area, you've got 2 chargers. You've got a Tesla HPWC.
There's several down there. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got HPWC, and you've also got a 3-phase outlet.
No, I'm not so worried about that. It's about if something's offline or not working properly at one of the stops on the way down and getting caught out that way, having that plan B.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Brookton was confirmed as working about a week ago because we saw an Ionic charging there twice. And Williams, I went there a couple of weeks ago and it worked for a little session and stopped working, but then it's been confirmed as being fixed the next day. And that's now fully operational. And there's also a 16 amp 3-phase outlet as well. So you've basically got redundancy at Williams. So
very good.
So that'll be fine.
Yeah.
And like I said, we should have a fast DC charger at Coolin as well. Yeah. Yes. So as far as accommodation, like I said,
that's not so important. Yep. I can deal with that other time. So I'll give you a call tomorrow about the pigtail. And cool. Thanks very much for all that, Harold. Yeah.
No worries, no problems.
Harold, what time would you expect people to be getting into Coolin?
Probably about lunchtime would be good, I think.
Yeah, because we're coming from the other way. We're coming from Esperance.
Yep.
And meet you there probably early afternoon. So
that'd be awesome.
Thought we'd do it a different way.
So what we'll do is, if I get the fast DC charger there, then it won't really matter and no one will care.
Yeah. If
I don't, then what we'll do is, as soon as someone arrives, we'll just get them on charge straight away. Or you get, booked in or whatever. And then we'll just make sure we just do the ABC of always be charging. Because the sooner we get some cars charged, the sooner the others can start charging and finish.
Yep.
So that that way we don't have many cars out at night. Although having said that, what they call the public area, which is a toilet block and RV dumping area, is, I think it's literally a stone's throw from the hotel. It's probably 40 meters away, and I presume very well lit. So that won't be an issue at all. But yeah, so there's so I think we'll probably aim probably about lunchtime, which means sort of like a 9-ish from Perth departure-ish, something like that. And like I said, we'll contact each of the people that are booked, and we'll just suss out cars. Well, most of the cars we'll probably know anyway. We can just look it up on our database, and then we'll get in touch with you guys as far as logistics. Sorry, not you, Brian, but the others from Perth. Yep. As far as if we want to go in a convoy or whatever. and like I said, the only car, well, I don't actually think any car needs to charge as long as it's been fully charged in the morning. It's just a matter of a little bit of comfort level. And the thing is, if we're going to convoy, we'll probably stick to maybe 100 k's an hour anyway. Or anyone is welcome to just get there themselves if they just don't want to do that. You know, just get there on their own steam, and they can basically plug in as soon as they're there. Yeah, so that's the Coolum thing. Now we've obviously got the Como. Our next casual meetup is at the Rotary Como Car Show. That's this coming Sunday at Wesley College. I sent that email out, I think, yesterday. So that's going to be our casual meetup, which will be a slightly different format.
Yeah, saw that, Harold. That should be good. Do you want everybody to come along and bring their cars, or is there parking space, or what? Or just forget that idea?
No,
I
well,
have to clean my car properly.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. No, we've got a few cars being there as sort of exhibitors.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I have to get there earlier. So you don't have to bring bring your car per se, or certainly you don't have to clean it because you can just park it somewhere down the street.
Okay, that's, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there are about 3 Model 3s coming, at least an S and an X. The 3 is the main thing. We're going to get John Edwards' race Model 3 there, which will be good. And yeah, but especially just an all-day social thing.
Okay.
Obviously, normally we have our casual meetups on Sunday between, I think, 11 and, well, whatever, sort of till 1 or 2. But this is basically from, I think, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. roughly. But it's one of those sort of casual things where you can just come and go, and there'll always be someone around.
You don't need another Model 3 on display?
No, but perhaps it's a nice little circle there, Nigel, that you sort of saw a Tesla and decided to buy one, and you could always return it from whence you got the idea. So, look, you can go onto their website, which you just look up Como Car Show, just Google it, and you can still register cars, I believe. I don't think there's a cutoff on that. I guess you could say the more the merrier. I guess it's entirely up to you.
I'm taking my car there, so I'll be there in my Model 3.
Cool. Sorry, was that Andrew? Yes. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yep.
Yeah, I registered a couple of weeks ago.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's up to you, Nigel, if you want to. It'll almost be like an avalanche of 3s.
It's kind of the reason that you mentioned there. This time last year, I was waiting for my car, and it was, there was the month-long delay, which seems to be happening again by the look of it over East. And I came down to that car show last year to see one in the flesh because only a few had turned up. And that's what actually sort of reinvigorated me, because I saw the car, I got excited about it, and then it was 2 weeks later I got my car.
Yeah, that's what Harold was alluding to. I went there, and that was on the Sunday, and I went home and I ordered it Sunday afternoon.
All right.
Yes, I had great fun telling the fellow committee members that, hey, this crazy guy we met, he's actually gone and he's joined the club, and he's gone and ordered the car. Yeah, that was
nice.
That was
Best
pretty good.
decision I've made.
And we never even got a single bit of commission out of Tesla. Oh, well, it's all good. Speaking of which, Harry Anderson, I spoke to him today, our sales guy, and yeah, he's just been busy all day today delivering cars. So he said he's been delivering cars left, right and centre, which is great because it's obviously the last day of the quarter. It's a big quarterly push. So it's good to see that there's more cars coming. Notwithstanding, I think it was you, Andrew, that mentioned about the month delay over East. There was a bit of an issue with cars coming off on the carriers in Sydney, I believe.
Yeah, there's port disputes or worker strikes or something.
Patrick's.
Yeah, the cars didn't get off the boat.
It's interesting. I'm living in Brisbane at the moment, Harold, and I'll be here for another 10 months. But because where I'm living, there's absolutely no charging whatsoever south of the river in Brisbane. So I used to drive around. I've now got a 15 amp outlet in the apartment we've hired, but I drive my car around to the charger. There's a supercharger in Fortitude Valley, and so it's about 10k. So I drive around there, but it's at the Tesla store. So, and they had like 20 Model 3s of all different ilks just waiting around to be delivered. It's quite amazing.
Nice.
Why don't they move these things, you know?
Well, I guess it takes a little bit of time, but yeah, was that today or was that?
In the last, about 2 weeks ago, yeah.
I dare say they've probably timed it just to get them just in on the quarter, because I always make the international cars last in the latter. Sorry, no, that's not true. In the earlier part of the quarter, so that they can get shipped and all the logistics can work out.
Right.
So, what they don't want is any cars in stock tomorrow.
Yeah.
They literally want to be devoid of all of them. Hence why.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to drive by there now and see what it's like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Empty.
Well, you could just get Zoom on your mobile and just do it now. Just do that experiment. It's a bit late though. It is a bit late.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit late. Yeah, it's like 5 to 10 over here.
Indeed. Yeah, it's funny doing Zoom stuff when you're doing it across states or time zones, and even internationally. We've done ones at sort of 4 o'clock in the morning, which is a bit difficult, or even 2 in the morning, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's kind of challenging.
Excellent. Well, I mean, we're highly envious of the Queensland Electric Highway, which is just awesome all the way up to Cairns, so even
It's
beyond.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be giving that a bit of a burl sometime over the next few months. Test it out. So it's every 200 kilometres, something like that. There's a supercharger, Tesla supercharger. There are a lot of them all the way up the coast. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I think Tesla's one finishes. There's not much past Brizzy as far as superchargers go.
There's one in Maroochydore.
Yes.
There's a few further up as well.
I'm just trying to bring that up now on PlugShare, but there are some coming, obviously. And I think that's Gympie. I think that's the furthest. That's at least like, Gympie. Yeah. So the superchargers don't look that awesome in Queensland, but when you add to that the Queensland Highway, it then suddenly fills in right up to Port Douglas. Yeah. Which is just awesome.
Yep. And there's quite a few inland as well. I mean, there's some of the smaller centres. It's not super populated, but it's not exactly sparse either.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You got Tamworth, Toowoomba. Of course, you get to sort of like Clare, and then you got to like go all the way to Lake Grace.
Yeah.
Which was only put in last week. And that was actually crowdfunded.
All right.
So,
there's only been a few uses of that in the last week. So we're going to be using it a couple of times next week, which will be good.
Yes. Well, the key to getting to Esperance is the Ravensthorpe charger.
Yeah, no, we're going to stay in that motel instead of going all the way through to Esperance on the first night. So give the ladies some business.
Yes, so you're going to stay at the
whatever it's called, the
caravan park at Ravensthorpe.
It is.
Greenhaven. Yeah, that's it.
Greenhaven, yes.
Yeah, that's good. That's a nice spot. So if you break it up into 2 trips, that makes it nice. 2 days, makes it nice.
And Harold, did I hear something about Williams being the next supercharger?
Yes, absolutely. So at Williams, I spoke to the manager and he basically said yes, that Williams is going to have a supercharger in Q1 next year.
Wow.
So as much as I'm a third party or a second, hearing it second hand, it's as good as happening.
All right.
It obviously makes sense for Tesla to then also have one at Kogenup, because it's kind of equidistant, or should I say it breaks up the Albany trip into sort of 3 roughly equal parts. Whereas if you front load it to Williams, you got a longer trip from Williams to Albany than from Perth to Williams. But we haven't heard if Kogenup is heating up or not. But Williams is still awesome. Because
It'd be nice if they put one in Meriden.
Oh, look, you're not wrong, Richard. If you, and in fact, to solve the Kalgoorlie issue, all you need is one at Meriden and one at Southern Cross. Oh, sorry, that's the corner retreat. Where's Southern Cross? Just there. We just go into 3-phase. So if you have Meriden and Southern Cross, then you've done Kalgoorlie, basically. And Meriden is on the Swiss, so that's got good power. Sorry, Southern Cross.
Well, Kalgoorlie as well, so yeah.
Yes, and you could have one in Kalgoorlie, which would be great to then go down to Norseman. And
oh yeah, you do that.
You could do a loop. I think Norseman to Esperance. Actually, I did Norseman to Esperance in one leap. I think it's a bit far, but it's not too bad. It's
at least you're going downhill. Because you're saying you were saying that the Ravensthorpe is the key to Esperance.
To Esperance.
I'd say that. I mean, but for us, we can get to Esperance, no problem. Getting back to Perth at Ravensthorpe is important because when we did it before, we had to stop at the Ravensthorpe at the what do you call it? The Roadhouse. And it was so busy, the power kept tripping, and
oh yes,
yeah. So eventually we got enough in, and then rolled into Lake Race with 2 k's of range left.
Ooh.
And
oh dear.
Yeah.
Actually,
in fact, both going in from both directions to Lake Race was 2 k's left on the range.
Wow. Actually, I take that back. Norseman to Esperance is only 203 kilometres, so that's perfect.
Oh, okay.
So you have a supercharger at Norseman, and you get from Kalgoorlie to Esperance in very quickly. So that's perfect. So really, you just need Meriden, Southern Cross, Kalgoorlie, Norseman, Esperance. We've got.
Is there any word on those, those sled charges that because I thought that was what was going to go into Meriden. I thought that was what was going to go into Williams, but now it turns out that that's actually getting a proper supercharged station. So presumably that still frees up the those portable sled chargers.
Look, Tesla may just decide to go straight to full stations.
Well, but obviously that'd be great, but
yeah, I mean, I'm not adverse. We as a club suggested that they just do sleds. Well, basically everywhere, because that way it's quick.
Yeah, I don't understand their reluctance, but if they've got
well, perhaps they've substituted that reluctance with they're saying, well, we're just going to put the whole proper station in. I mean, certainly from Williams' point of view, and perhaps Kogenup, if they do that, it's a no-brainer because it's not like they're ever going to remove it. It'll always be used.
True.
Perhaps the Meriden and Southern Cross, we're not adverse to them having sleds because then we can prove that they'll be used because we'll just make sure we use it. So,
because that's kind of the problem. I kind of think of it that Tesla are going to put in superchargers where they can see that people are going, that they need them, but then people aren't making those trips on those routes because there are no superchargers. So it's like, well, and
that's one of the arguments.
Get a better idea of who's heading where.
That's one of the arguments I was trying to mount was, they may think of it as being risky because the data isn't there or the usage isn't there, but it's not there because there's no charging.
Yeah, you can't go there, so of
No,
course nobody goes there.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I took the cousins to Kalgoorlie just before the COVID kicked off and all the lockdown that, and it was it's doable, but it's difficult, as we all know. So
yeah. Well, Paul, I went from Tennant Creek to Camberwell in one hop. But I did that at an average speed of about 67 k's an hour.
Gosh, yeah.
And that was 471 k's.
Oh dear.
So,
That's a challenge, yeah.
and then when I got to Camberwell, I had to charge for 4 hours.
Mm.
Actually, no, it wasn't that long because I only had to get to Mount Isa.
Oh, yeah.
And then I stayed at the town past Mount Isa. I forget what that was now, but
Wow.
Charters Towers? No, not that. Something else. But yeah, that's exactly the hard slog. It's just a hard slog when you're on Cloncurry.
Cloncurry, yeah.
Yeah. So it was basically from Tennant Creek to Cloncurry in one day,
Jeez.
which is a long slog when you're on AC.
Oh yeah.
But
The problem I can see though with superchargers, particularly with our Swiss network, is the capacity charges. So unless you're going to be putting in a supercharger with, say a 232 kilowatt hour power pack, which of course then puts the price up by another 120, 130 grand.
you need more than that, Richard. You need because each power pack can only put out 50 kilowatts, so you need 3.
Oh,
yes.
can it? Okay.
So power pack is 200 kilowatt hours, but it can only supply 50 kilowatts. So you need 3 power packs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
You've got 600 kilowatt hours of storage. So you can do quite a few cars, but you need 3 of them. And Tesla have sort of said it's not really economically viable. Although having said that, it's not economically viable in a well-supplied city. But if you're out in the bush and there's really nothing much else, then the economics sort of completely change. And I dare say with their battery day announcements of the 4680,
Wow.
that does change the battery pack sort of or battery storage equation.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Does.
And one thing that I noticed, I don't know if many of you picked up, but I got really excited when he was talking about iron-based batteries.
Yeah.
Well, there's a load of iron just over there.
Yeah, I don't think supply of iron is the issue.
No, not at all. Not if my bonus has anything to do with it. So that got me quite excited, more than I should.
I do like the well-named town of Tom Price, or Mount Tom Price. It's no longer a mountain, obviously, because they've dug it into a hole.
That's right.
But apparently that was specifically named Mount Tom Price after Tom Price, who was the head of Kaiser Steel, who feared that there would be a short supply of iron ore because they were making so much steel in the 1960s that it would eventually run out. And I think the people at Hammersley Iron sort of cheekily said, well, we're going to name this mountain after you. And there's like tons of it. And there still is. Well, it's not tons, there's megatons of it.
Yeah,
I don't think iron is a problem.
No.
Just want to try and get Elon's attention to build a gigafactory in Perth or in Western Australia.
Yeah, dead right. We got the nickel and all that.
Oh yeah, we've got the lot. It's
We got graphite. We got nickel.
we've got.
Well, they're not even going to use graphite anymore for the...
No, a lot of silicon. We got sand.
Famously, no shortage of that.
It's good sand too.
Yeah, best quality quartz.
Oh dear. But no, we're not. Everyone knows we're not going to get a gigafactory. It kind of doesn't make sense. But who knows? We might get a battery factory.
Well, that's what I thought. We don't need a full-size gigafactory, but I mean, we've obviously got lithium because we supply all Tesla lithium, and we've got all the iron ore. So
But if you
Yes.
know, if their new batteries don't have all that drying plant for the electrolyte anymore, they're very small. They'll be a lot cheaper. We could manufacture all the batteries required for Australia. You know.
Well, exactly. And that Cato, was it that Cato Road building that they've got, have proved that they can, make a 10 gigawatt hour
Yeah.
plant in the middle of a city. So
Yeah, absolutely.
surely that's portable everywhere.
I was telling the Minister Reece Whitby a few months back that that's what they should do. They should just go and do a battery factory only. Like the government really needs to bend over, like Texas and other states have for Tesla, if they're going to get them to come here. I don't think they would unless they gave them some stupid deal.
Absolutely.
But like you said, because the nickel and the lithium is all right here, it'd just be obvious, right?
Yeah, it is.
It wouldn't
He's
just be
looking for
Australia.
nickel.
It wouldn't be Australia either. Like if they could create like a terawatt scale factory that was dedicated to cell lines exclusively, they could probably make more cells here than in some of their other locations. In my opinion.
That's right. And with the dry electrode process, you go from that to that.
Yeah, that's right.
And then getting back to the different cells, you've got your iron-based,
That's the one, yeah.
smaller cars, and then your nickel manganese for the medium ones, and your high nickel for the big stuff.
At least in the Asian market, right? Even if it was too expensive with the savings to ship back to North America, like with the Asian market, surely the total cost would be so much cheaper having the almost zero distance from the pit.
And also, I'm sure that that shipping things to China is going to be cheap because they mostly, they come full and they leave empty. So,
Yes.
Just imagine, like, I'm sure it's not going to happen, but just imagine, like, you've got iron ore, ships taking this material off to China, and then you've got cells leaving to China.
Yeah, for sure. It's
ridiculous.
Yeah. We can dream.
Dreams are good.
Yep.
Dreams are good. Nothing wrong with that.
But no, it did actually interest me that they wouldn't be using a cheaper battery for the Cybertruck, because I thought that the advantage there, it surprised me that they had the high nickel for the Cybertruck, because I would have thought that they could get away with a cheaper chemistry with the Cybertruck, seeing as it's such a big platform to put the cells in. But then I guess it's not.
Yeah, I don't think they can afford to. I think they need to have as much energy density as possible.
I would have thought that the energy density would be for the, for the S's, the X's,
You need it for towing. I think you need it for carrying loads. So if you put your 1.5 tons in the vault and then tow a big trailer, that's what
a caravan or something.
Yeah, caravan. That's or a
true. Yeah. I'm not complaining.
Like a tradies trailer or something. You really need a lot of energy density for that. And the semi, of course, you do need it because you want the weight reduction, because you're in the States to 80,000 pounds, I think, total combination mass. So
the only car that would make sense for LFP would be the entry level 3Y, and maybe whatever the small vehicle is, and then obviously stationary storage potentially.
Yeah.
Well, they're already doing LFP for Model 3s in China.
Yes,
true.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm just agreeing with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just a commuter, just around town, go shopping and all that sort of thing. Perfect for that. Perfect. I mean, the little Mitsubishi FTO that I put together 10 years ago had 180 amp hours of lithium iron phosphates in it. And that served me perfectly well for 10 years. I went everywhere in that thing. 100,000 kilometers I did.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
That's great.
Did you measure the depth of discharge over that distance?
Yeah, I rarely went below about 20%. Rarely. Usually.
Sorry. I mean the capacity loss.
Oh, the capacity loss, yeah. So at the end, I was only getting sort of 120 kilometres range out of the car instead of, I was used to 180. So after sort of 9 years of driving it pretty much every day, but only discharging it sort of down to 60% sort of thing most of the time, with the odd long trip on weekends and the like. But so
Did it
yeah,
have a cycle counter connected to it? Do you know how many cycles it did?
I did. I've got to remember now.
It's kind of
It
interesting
was
data.
well over 2,000 cycles. Yeah,
That's cool.
and it got down to about, yeah. So it was about 120 amp hours. So the car basically did, when it was new, it did 180 kilometers on 180 amp hours of batteries. So I went out to a sister-in-law's place, and she lived out Lower Chittering, and it was a 180 kilometre round trip. And when I got home, it was right down low, like nearly zero. And when I dismantled the car in September last year, it was sort of 120 kilometres when it was considered, like it was starting to cut out about 120 kilometres when I'd gone 120 kilometres.
So that's somewhere between like 60 and 70% of the original capacity after a couple thousand cycles in 9 years.
Yeah. And what you don't know is the embarrassing thing is that about 6 months after I built the car, I went on a trip to the UK, and I had somebody looking after the house, and the car was parked in the driveway and it's plugged into the charger. And there was an insidious load. There's a permanent drag on the battery from a really old school alarm system that somebody had fitted, an aftermarket alarm system that somebody fitted before I bought the car, and it dragged down the 12-volt battery, and of course the traction battery went, oh, I better charge that up. So I charged it up, but the charger that I had, the Elcon charger I had in the thing, didn't restart. It didn't sort of reinitiate. So even though I was plugged in, it didn't charge it up. So it actually, over the 3 weeks, drained the traction battery to 0 volts. And what do they say about lithium batteries? Charge it, like you drag them to 0 volts, that's it, it's all over, throw them away. It's not true. I actually managed to resurrect them and drove for another like 8 years after that, 9 years after that.
We know that LFP is much more resilient to that than.
Oh, it is, yeah.
I know the other lithium chemistries.
Yeah, I wouldn't ever advocate it for anything, but yeah, I'd been told reliably by all sorts of people that never let them go to zero, because
you actually measured 0 volts on it.
Absolutely 0 volts. They'd been at 0 for a week. Unbelievable. And like, how did I charge them up? So I got a 240 volt lead, cut the end off it, put a diode on it, and just started pulsing with a resistor, and started pulsing 240 volts. It was actually rectified, of course, through a single diode. Just trickle charged it for 2 days until I got a voltage back up high enough that the onboard charger recognised it was actually a cell there. It was actually a battery in the car. So then I could turn it on and it went away. Charge it up.
What configuration did you have? Like, what voltage was the pack set? Like, what was
144 volts. Yeah,
okay.
45 cells in parallel, in series.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so yeah, worked quite well. Those batteries, like I said, I crunched the car up the end of last year because the body was falling to pieces. The suspension was stuffed. There was rust coming out of it everywhere. So it had reached the end of its life. But I took all the batteries out of it and I stuck them in the house. But it was then that I managed to land this job in Brisbane. So I had to leave. So the batteries are sitting there in the house, but they're not plugged into anything. They're just sitting there. So when I get back in a year's time, I'll plug them into a charger and a solar array and start powering the house with it.
Does everyone know that Leon's got another 75 kilowatt hour Model 3 pack that he's trying to sell, either whole or the 400 volt modules?
All right.
No? You didn't pass that on, Pete? I'll see if I can pull information.
Brian,
How much did you sell one of those for?
I'll go and get the information and come back to you in a minute.
Yeah, okay.
Brian, were you in 2J the other week?
Were you talking to me?
Yeah.
I'm the only Brian. I'm just looking around. No, we weren't.
Oh, okay.
What?
All right. There was someone with a like face with a beard that was I saw on my Sentry alarm thing when I came back after having a couple of pints at the pub.
Ah, okay. By doing a dance around the car.
Yeah, no, there was a white S next to me, which that person drove, and he looked a bit like you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't me. No, we got the grey, so.
There you go.
I'm in 2J at the moment, Pete.
Oh, are you? What are you doing up there?
You lost?
We're no, ashamedly, I'm in a internal combustion engine.
Oh, shame on you.
Car, so yeah, I know. I can see you, Nigel.
I did notice before you showed the Oh God bar on the side, and I'm like, that's
yeah,
not
right. Yeah, no, unfortunately, until Tesla makes the Cybertruck, that's the only choice. We're caravanning, so it's a 3-ton caravan. So not much else I can put it with, unfortunately. But yeah, this is the only time the car gets to leave the shed these days. So
Taking my Mazda down camping with the boys next week as well. They're definitely not they're not going in the 3 when we're camping.
I drove my Audi for the first time in 6 months today, and I've got to use the brakes.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I did before we left. I went shopping, and in the car, and then I came back after shopping, and I couldn't open the boot. So I thought, oh, okay, I better grab the keys. And I thought, oh, geez, where's my keys? I couldn't find my keys. I thought, oh, must have left them in the supermarket. And I thought, no, maybe I've left them in the car. So I've left the keys in the car, and I didn't even notice the whole time the keys were in the car, and the car was running. So it's been not only am I not used to locking the car anymore, I'm not even used to turning it off. So,
Yeah. Trap for young players, mate.
Oh dear.
I left a Hyundai unlocked with the keys in it overnight across the road, just parked on the side of the road opposite my house all night. And got there in the morning and like the door just opened. I thought, oh, that's cool. And I thought, oh dear, the keys were in the ignition. At least the engine wasn't running. But
yeah.
I tell you what's bad for me as well, because on site we don't lock any vehicles either. So I'm used to just walking away from a vehicle and never locking it. So then when I say go back to the UK or something and that, I'm continuously just never locking vehicles anymore. So
yeah,
I've got to do a thing, don't I?
Just going back to the having to brake thing, I charged the car to 100 the other day, and even then you lose the regen. So you enter my street, I'm in the cul-de-sac, I'm like, oh, geez, he's got to hit the brake. They should simulate it somewhat with
I
the
think
software
I agree.
instead
I
of,
think I think
just giving you nothing. They should just make it feel the same regardless of charge level, because they can stop the car and drive it by itself. So
yes, they can do one pedal driving. In fact, that's actually one gripe I've got about the older cars not having one pedal driving, whereas all the Raven cars do, because the Ravens can literally lock the I forget if it's the front or the rear motor, it's the switch reluctance DC motor. They can actually stop it dead. And yet they should just in software just do the same thing for all the induction only motor cars. But you're right, you should be able to just in software just have it press your brake.
Yeah,
when you take
exactly.
your foot off the accelerator so that it feels right. That's one thing that Porsche sort of do. I guess you call it slightly better, although they do it at a cost, which is they cloak a lot of the extra capacity of the battery because they can have full regen. I think it's 150 kilowatts of regen all the way to their so-called 100% capacity.
Yeah, right.
It clearly isn't 100%.
But it only regens when you press the brake, doesn't it? There's no, it doesn't coast to on regen.
Oh, okay. So
which is why I see it as a very different vehicle to a Model S, because it's a really sports-oriented car.
Yep.
Which is why on the EPA testing cycle it gets really, not very good range, because
there's no regen. Yes.
Yeah, it has a different profile style, I guess.
Yeah, I guess if they simulate something like coasting down a hill, of course it doesn't recover any of that energy because.
Do you think there's an option to turn it on?
Don't think so.
I guess I don't know anyone who has one, so.
At least it's not like a Kona where
I
you.
certainly don't. I'm just going off YouTube reviews and seen a few of them. So
I'm pretty sure with a Kona you have paddles on the side of the steering wheel that you use to use the regen. I don't think even that automatically does it.
Isn't that silly? Like who wants to worry about that?
Yeah.
The Mitsubishi Outlander.
Yeah, I had to drive John's one. I think you're right. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Is it the Kona where you actually use the paddles to change the level of regen?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
That's what the Outlander does. I think it's got, from memory now, I think it had 3 or 4 levels.
It's got 5 levels.
What's that?
I've got a FEV.
Yeah.
It's got 5 levels.
5, right.
On the top level, when it's regen, the brake lights come on, but on 4 and below, well, 1 I think is no regen. 4 and below, when it's regenning, the brake lights don't come on. Unlike the Tesla, where if it's regenning, it virtually comes on all the time.
Well, yeah. Well, it adjusts if you're decelerating beyond a certain threshold. It'll put the brake lights on.
Yes,
and I think when it comes to a stop or close to a stop, it'll also do that, just so that cars know or whatever behind you.
Tesla software engineers have picked some arbitrary inertia number, which goes above which people don't need warning.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because if you're only gently slowing down, well, that's just the normal course of almost coasting, isn't it? So yeah,
roughly equivalent to engine braking.
Yes. Which is a bit
How
like.
they come up with that number?
They probably
Get your average car and put an accelerometer in it.
That's, or perhaps there might be. No, there wouldn't be. I was going to say there might be some regulation, but of course, conventional cars don't have that. They just have a brake pedal. Brake light switch. Brake pedal switch.
Yeah, it's much more simple. It would kind of be completely pointless to decouple that and then conditionally turn it on in a regular car, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense at all.
That's exactly right.
I pasted the battery stuff in the chat if anyone's keen
I got that. Thanks.
Some DIY Powerwall action there. I was thinking about one of them smaller ones. 17 kilowatt hours for my house. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
I've got 30 kilowatt hours at my house now, but it's not plugged into anything.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it will be eventually.
I was kind of hoping that Battery Day was going to, I know this was a long shot, but we're going to get some kind of product on the horizon where we didn't have to worry about this and the car would do it. But anyway.
That bit was actually kind of interesting that he, because someone asked that question when are you doing vehicle to grid. I found it interesting that he said, no, it's never going to, basically no point, because people don't want to shackle their car to their house. They want to have the freedom of being able to just get in and drive. And it was a very, I guess, commercial response, because he obviously wants to sell batteries and cars. But I guess there is some merit to the ability to just
would be useful.
But they did say that they would be implementing it because they've surveyed owners in Germany to see if they wanted to participate in the energy market, and I think Elon Musk said that they could do that, or they are going to do that in Europe. But his main point was that it wouldn't be as a UPS, the grid, because you need the disconnector, which effectively you need a gateway, which a Powerwall has a gateway, which has a disconnector. So I think he was sort of like glossing over the fact that it's not that difficult to do. You just need well, effectively you need an interface to a gateway. But he didn't reject the idea of participating using
auto bidder.
Yeah. And that wouldn't be as your car backing up your entire house in a blackout, because he said that was harder to do. But you can absolutely participate in a minute by minute auto bidder situation.
Correct. So they're actually two different things. Yeah.
Why is that harder to do than selling to the grid, like using arbitrage?
Because you need a breaker on the house side to disconnect
off the grid.
Off the grid, it's got to have electronics to synchronize and desynchronize.
The auto changeover.
Yeah.
You need a changeover switch or changeover breaker, or sorry, contactor, so that when you're islanding yourself, you're not allowed to feed power back into the it wouldn't work because the grid
blow it up. Yeah.
Is an unlimited sink or unlimited load, and all you want to do is back up your house. And it's also illegal; it has to disconnect. Same as all those grid interactive solar inverters.
The hybrid ones,
Yeah, as soon as they detect the hybrids can do it, but they have to do it with an additional contactor. So you connect like at Fronius, you connect your grid, your meter, the smart meter, on the grid side, and then you have a contactor on the load side, your house side, which I can isolate off the grid. So when the smart meter detects the grid is faulty, so whether you've lost a phase, probably, it is actually. It's a very simple system. They just have a little relay that's off L1 actually, or blue phase. So if there's a single phase loss, then it will go into island mode, disconnect off the grid, and then produce power to feed the now local grid, which is your house. So, but I mean, that's one extreme use case, which is if you want a UPS for your house. But as we know, most houses don't lose power very often. But you could get great gains with vehicle to grid in participating in arbitrage on the open market.
Definitely.
And you
worth a lot of money.
Yeah, it'd be a lot more than the stupid rates that they give us, even though they've just recently changed them.
Well, I mean, we paid through the nose. I mean, I was talking to a building developer, and those larger multi-story buildings. I mean, they're paying of the order of sort of 15 cents a kilowatt hour flat rate, which is something that none of us can get.
No.
Flat. So,
who's paying that?
Various residential buildings, big towers and stuff. Development.
Even like during the peak.
24/7 flat rate.
There's industrial sides, big industrial sides that pay, around the 7 cent mark. I mean, this is an unbundled tariff, but around 7 cents peak and 3.5, 4 cents off peak.
Wow.
They're contestable loads, so they
they're contestable. Sorry, I thought, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the point is, it's a contestable load because by definition, the government, basically the government has decided that small people can't shop around. We are only permitted to buy power from Synergy.
It's got to be what's the limit for contestable load? It's pretty big.
It's 50,000 kilowatt hours a year.
50,000. I remember I was consuming well over 100 units a day. That's probably not enough, is it? No. It's only 36,000.
Yeah.
I think I should have tried.
There are residential contestable customers out there, believe it or not.
Well, I had a power bill of $2,000, so that's got to get close.
Yeah, and there's actually even large use contestable customers that are residential, believe it or not.
What the hell are they doing?
Well, I had a Bitcoin miner running 24/7, so that gives a bit of juice.
Well, there you go. But these guys, I mean, these houses got 15 bedrooms, and every bedroom's got a bathroom, and every bathroom's got a hot water heater, because you don't want to wait the 15 seconds for the water to heat up. So you've got to have a local heater, you know, on standby for each bathroom. So, you know, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty big. I'm just trying to find one. That's only $1,600. That's only $1,600. That's not trying hard enough.
It's probably
and you've got the 50,000 kilowatt hours. You can't just have one bill. I think you've got to sort of demonstrate 12 months.
That's 2,300.
60 days.
60 days, yes. The daily consumption, the average that was 63 days.
If you have a look under the chart, it will give you the daily average usage in both dollars and cents, as well as 128. Oh, there you go.
I had 128 units.
You're very close, about 90% there.
Should have tried harder. But I dare say, if you just get over the threshold and then you become contestable,
once contestable, you're contestable for life.
Oh, you're joking?
Yeah. So, but it's got to be over a 12-month period, roughly. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that wasn't going to happen. Oh well.
Yeah. Get your jerry cans out and put all the electrons in there. Then you'll do it.
Just power the neighbour's house at well for a year, and then when you've got yours, then switch around and get him to power you.
That's why they make it illegal to let power pass your boundary. So you're actually not allowed to power your neighbour's house, even if you own it.
It's actually a criminal offence. So I'm trying to remember his name, Peter. He was the former state energy minister. Used to play tennis with him in my previous life. Went to blank. Anyway, I think it was under his administration that even, you know, if the old spinning disc meters, it was at that time that it was made illegal for them to spin backwards. So, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say I think they made it a criminal offence. I think it was classed as meter tampering. So.
Oh, you mean as having excess solar making it spin backwards?
Well, no, even if you didn't spin backwards, but having solar in and not having a bidirectional meter.
Oh yes, because for a while you had to you could put an application in to get a rebate back, feed-in tariff back, but you didn't have to complete you could get your solar installed and you never had to actually complete the paperwork. So a lot of people worked out they were better off just never submitting, because their aluminium disc meters, whatever they're called, would go backwards, and they'd effectively be net metering.
You'd be effectively getting a 1-for-1 feed-in tariff, 28-cent feed-in tariff.
An awesome deal. That's a fantastic deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So then they made it illegal to commission the solar without the paperwork being approved and gone through.
Yeah, and even if a CEC, Clean Energy Council accredited installer, installs a system before a bidirectional meter is put in, he's not allowed to turn the system on. So he can install the whole thing, it can be all ready to go, but he's not allowed to flick the switch.
It's got to be isolated, doesn't it? It's got to be tagged off, basically.
Yeah.
Well, in the States, I believe they're actually worse than that, because the utilities literally drag their feet once everything's been installed to actually inspect, because they have to actually fit a meter, I think, in line, and they can take their sweet time to do that, and it can be literally weeks upon weeks, if not months, before they finally do that.
I mean, it used to be fairly long at one stage, but pretty good now. It's within a sort of a week or so.
Yeah, cool. Even though obviously every little bit of marginal solar that's being added to the grid is kind of affecting it, or has the potential to, if done willy-nilly. But then that gets back to battery storage. That will solve the problems, and EVs for that matter, that are properly charged or controllably charged at optimal times.
Yep.
But yeah, getting back to Elon Musk, I mean, I think what's positive was that they did say that in future the onboard chargers will be capable of bidirectional power flow, and that's a very good thing. So
the current ones aren't, are they?
No, because they've got diodes instead of transistors in the input. No, it's the second stage, I think. I forget which way it goes. I think it's the second stage where it's rectifying to DC after it goes through the isolation transformers. But that's a simple design change if they have that sort of bent to do that.
Yeah.
Well,
apparently the new Leafs do it.
Yeah, I think they do it though on the DC side. So I think that actually requires effectively an inverter.
Special box.
Oh. Yeah, a box that acts as an inverter as well as. Well, I guess the box could then just be a bidirectional DC charger.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what it should
DC,
be.
it's not a problem. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You just keep it all DC as far as the car's concerned.
But you know, Tesla could do that if they decided to either build that into a Powerwall or some other wall box device without changing the car, because they could simply change the software and close the DC contactors through the Type 2 connector.
Yes, absolutely.
The Type 2 connector, if you bridge the right pins, would be more than enough for a home use.
Oh, yeah, the CCS2, yes, absolutely, yeah.
No, not CCS2, just Type 2.
Well, no, for Type 2, then you need your onboard charger needs to have transistors in the part of the circuit that currently has diodes.
No, what I'm saying is they could. Yeah, maybe they do have to modify the car.
Yes, no, they definitely do, because if you're AC coupling, you need to have the power flow going the other way. And there was a great YouTube video. I
saw that. Yeah, guy pulled one of them apart and said that you could just replace these diodes with transistors and it'd work in reverse.
Yes,
it's not that simple, but sure.
Well, he was an electronics engineer. He said it had been designed to do it, but they put diodes in place.
Yeah. It is. It's basically is, because you're basically switching it the other way. But you need transistors instead of diodes to do the rectification.
The switching.
But where they use as rectifiers in that direction, but you got to go the other way, and that would work. But the good thing is Tesla have basically effectively announced on Battery Day that will occur in future cars, even if it's limited to just arbitrage for grid interactive. Effectively, it's equivalent of being a grid interactive solar inverter. It's just that it won't participate in in blackout situations, unless you couple it with a gateway.
Yeah.
I wonder if you had like a DIY CCS rig at home and you did all the right instructions.
You could open the contactors.
Yes, you'd close the contactors and you'd be able to pull power out of it.
Yes. Yeah.
It would not charge unless that's true.
No, well, there's nothing stopping you, if your car was out of warranty, basically to put in an inline dongle on the CAN bus to the battery pack to tell it to do so. You just got to feed it the right CAN message. It's just like what EVTV does with the Model 3 S and X battery packs to turn them into stationary storage.
What I'm saying is, I don't think you'd even need to modify anything on the car side. You just have to have a DIY CCS implementation.
The only thing that might happen though is when the car, because in CCS2, well, yeah, well in CCS,
you're right.
You have a negotiation. So what happens is the first thing happens is you have an isolation test. So you start talking. Yeah, isolation test. That's all good. You connect, and the car will tell the charger what the battery voltage it needs to, what voltage it needs to match.
Yeah, and all the limits and everything. And when it doesn't see the current flowing in the right direction, it'll be like, no, I'm not doing this.
That's right, because it knows what's happening.
Exactly,
So
it knows what it should expect.
Yeah, as soon as it sees it losing power instead of gaining power, it'll go, no, something's
into
up.
an error state.
Error.
Yeah, good
So
call.
you just do what John Edwards did with the Kona and just splice straight into the cable.
That's the spirit. That's what you got to do.
I'll just cut this big fat wire right about here. Yeah, no, thank you.
We'll just get the scalpel out.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Well, it's effective.
John's a hacker. He's so cool.
It's effective. It works well.
I don't know if it would work on a Tesla, to be quite honest, because like you said, Harold, they monitor so much more telemetry.
Yeah.
And I think, it's a black box, right? But we love speculating about the black box. It's likely that they would close contactors with conditions like that. Oh, sorry.
Yes,
open them.
Yes,
contactors.
but you could absolutely still do like an EVTV solution, which is when the car's parked in the garage, you effectively isolate the battery pack from the car's CAN bus and substitute it for your own. And then you just tell the battery pack to close its contactors. See, because the battery pack, I don't think cares. It will measure what's happening and report it to the main master controller. And the master controller will then say, well, in that case, close your contactors. And it does it in sequence because, you've got the two contactors.
Yeah.
You've got the resistor for the capacitor charge. What's the name? Basically,
pre-charge contactor.
Yes. So all you need to do is basically virtually disconnect the battery from the car, and substitute your own CAN bus, and it'll then close the contactors. The car won't even know that's happening.
That's kind of what John wanted to avoid, and that's why he went post BMS and contactors, so that he got a little bit of protection. Yes. It's just taking everything into your own hands if you kind of do it that way, aren't you?
Well, the EVTV solution for stationary storage works really well, and they combine that with those Chinese inverters and their own little not a BMS, but their own little system.
Yeah.
So that once the battery pack's charged to a certain state of charge, whatever it is, or voltage, or the cell voltages, it'll then disconnect. Or
what's the other popular one? Sorry? What's the other popular one that the DIY Powerwall folks use?
The other one, I think Jason Hughes, the other guy. I don't know. I'm mainly familiar with the EVTV one because I've seen that work quite well.
Leon and all his buddies use this other one. It's much more expensive though, but it's got full compatibility with the Tesla modules. But you pay SIPS BMS.
Yes.
SIPS or SIMS?
Something like that. Yeah. But yeah, so you've got on the chat that battery pack. So where is that? Is that in Perth or is that over east?
It's here. It's in his workshop. There's a link to the Facebook post.
Yeah. I haven't opened the link, but I'm just looking at the details. 25K.
Yeah, that's cheaper than Jim's one that he shipped. But I think what Jim Jim got. What's that guy who passed away recently?
Yeah, that's EVTV, Jack Rickard.
Yeah, Jack. Yeah, it was from Jack, right? And so Jack had his controller and interface, and he supplied it, tested and working. So that's why you pay a bit more.
That's right.
That makes it easier for us, kind of simpletons, because we can tell it what to do with like basic Arduino rather than understanding CAN.
Exactly. That's right, because he does all that, and you get the display. And you just basically bolt it to any inverter.
Yeah, that's what he bought.
And if you get the basic old-fashioned inverters, they actually act as the charger as well, which is the beauty of the system. So then you can have grid interactive solar inverters that are powering your house, and when there's surplus power, it backflows through the conventional inverter into the battery pack. So then what?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of doing. I'm thinking of paying an electrician to come and install the solar and the inverter, which I'll supply, and it will be, you know, one of these cheaper ones that I'll go and buy myself that supports, you know, up to 100 volts, so I can charge one of these modules, and then I'll just connect the DC side, and then I'm kind of, I don't know if my insurance still covers it, but at least I have some confidence that I didn't go and do all of the electrical stuff that I don't know anything about, the licensed electrical stuff, you know.
That's what I was going to do.
But if you get the whole pack and you get that control system to one of these conventional inverters, it's all automatic. And
I don't know. Maybe I'm just not as confident as you.
No, well, it is, because I mean, I think Jack was using Enphase
yeah, he was
micro inverters, and he was actually getting his Arduino based controller to put out a relay output to the inverter to tell the inverter to change frequency by 2 hertz, which would then kick off the solar inverters, the micro inverters, because they would all kick off for 5 minutes, and he just keep doing that once his battery was full, because the challenge is overcharging.
I was going to say, I guess if I'm going to do this in my house where my kids sleep, I've got to take on a lot of risk that it's safe, and so the simpler it is and the more confidence I have in understanding it, the more likely I'm going to do it. So,
well, you've got to, if you install anything in a house, it's got to be legal to install under, you know, energy safety. So, you know, and it's got to, it's not just the wiring itself, it's also the batteries. So there's no chance of them being overcharged or whatever. And that's where, again, when you have this proper module that plugs into the battery pack, if it gets overcharged, it will disconnect. And in fact, I think Tesla's module will actually open the contactors anyway if there's too much, if they're being overcharged. I think.
Only if you're using their controller.
Well, that's what you got to do.
Yeah,
it's the safest way, because otherwise you're dealing with effectively just raw cells that are always connected. And there's a lot of energy, as we know, in lithium-ion batteries.
Oh shit, yeah.
You know, they go off like Roman candles once they get thermal runaway. Because I think they liberate oxygen as they're overheating, which then reacts with all the metal that's in the rest of the battery casing and all that sort of stuff.
Your lithium burns pretty well.
Yeah, you just take those old batteries out of like a Nokia and stick a knife through it, catch fire in seconds.
Yeah, and it's impressive.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
Well, what's scary is when you see an old Nokia phone and you see the back of it and all the plastic's all bulged out. Then you think, wow, I wonder how close that was from running away thermally.
No, that's just how they wear. Like in RC, the lithium polymer ones, they do that when you put them through too much hard work. That doesn't mean they're going to explode or anything. They just do that naturally when they're overworked.
Cool. Well, that's good to know, because I've seen a couple of those and thinking, wow, wonder what could have happened.
I know an earlier Mac I had, maybe like a 2011 version, back when you could replace certain parts in it. The bottom of it split off because the battery pack expanded enough to pop the panel off.
There you go. In some other news I heard this week, some positive news. I think we got, was it Tesla in the Gong, put out a tweet to Elon Musk about the Cybertruck, basically trying to get clarity as to whether Tesla would be sending the US version here. And I believe that Elon Musk replied with something like, well, as long as it's legal, we will, which is a very positive thing. So even though we're clearly a small right-hand drive market, I guess it means that as far as Tesla's concerned, as long as it can be categorized appropriately and gotten through with dimensional restrictions or whatever, there's no impediment to the original version being sent here. Which is
why does it matter so much to people to have the original version versus the smaller one?
Because
it's only 3% smaller.
Because a smaller one will get here maybe in about 6 years.
Yeah.
Whereas the big one will get here maybe in 3. So I guess it's all about time, isn't it?
I'm not sure if that reasoning holds up anymore, because like the left hand and right hand 3s and Ys are made on the same line because of their high common component count. I'm not sure if it's actually logical to assume that it would take much longer.
Oh, well, just look at the Model 3. And I can look at the Model X. I got my Model X in March 2017. It was built in November 2016. And the first X's came out in 2015, early 15, I think. And the Model 3s, no, who was it? It wasn't, it was Richard, I forget the other Richard, who told us how many days, and it was like 1,000 and something days he waited from when he reserved his Model 3 to receiving it. He count, I think it was 1,500 days, or no, maybe, well, I forget now. So the Model 3.
I was the same. It was about 3.5 years, but he was counting it from the 1st of April.
Yes.
Or the 2nd of April, our time, 2016, which was.
Yes.
But that was only the day it was unveiled. So.
Yes. Yeah. True. But I think it was the Model 3 took at least 18 months.
Oh, at least, it's close to 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the Cybertruck will come out no later than late next year. But if you just add 2 years, that's when we're going to get it. So that's basically, let's call that 3 years. The European so-called version, or the world version, which will have to be world homologated, and that'll mean there'll be some stupid pedestrian requirement that the front has to be soft for pedestrians.
It'll be the lowest common denominator for all the other regions. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Right? Which then means that
it's going to constrain it.
And given that the US market is the biggest, they'll be busy enough just supplying that bulk standard thing rather than having to play with another version. And whether that, they might do another version on another line altogether because it's just simpler to do that, possibly.
But it's only going to be the Texas factory for the next couple of years, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I think it's been announced that the Cybertruck is only Texas, and the semi, well, they call it a semi, but it's sort of the prime mover will be Texas as well. And obviously, as we know, Texas is doing Y and 3 for their eastern seaboard.
East Coast, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so the so-called world Cybertruck, I would dare say, if we had to wait for that, that would probably be at least 5 years.
I just checked, Harold. The Model 3 was released in the US in July 2017, and I got mine among the first ones, and that was September 2019. So more than 2 years.
More than 2 years. Yep. And
I'm just a bit more optimistic. Like, I know we haven't got even the ordering for the Y yet, but when that data point comes out, I'm hoping that these points are getting closer to each other. You know what I mean?
I was quite interested that there was news out of Shanghai that was saying that the line was being reconfigured. I think that was the Model 3 line, which was quite interesting. Whether that's to do with the single mold for the back.
Oh, the casting.
The casting.
Sorry, the casting. Because I got a bit excited a few weeks ago when I saw all that extra stock, and I tweeted out with all the photos of the white Model 3s, which aren't that popular in China, because none of the other drone shots had lots of stacks of white ones. And I thought, maybe they're getting ready for a big shipment to go to Australia, which obviously hasn't happened, or not that we know about.
Because in China, the free color is still black, isn't it?
I think so. Yes. Yes.
We would know about it if it happened, because that Vita Prime guy is just all over this shit.
Yes. Well,
we would totally know if they were coming from China.
One of the latest drone shots from Jason Yang shows basically zero, like where you got all those sea containers on that big concrete pad. There are 0 cars in stock on the outside. So, and he did say that they're reconfiguring the line or something, upgrading it. So that's interesting as far as Chinese built Model 3s, but that would also pertain to Model Y. And it's been basically announced that Shanghai will be producing cars, presumably 3s and Ys, for more than just the Chinese market. And that includes Australia and New Zealand. And they did sort of say Europe, which was a bit weird, but
maybe it's for the LFP versions. Maybe they're only going to do LFP 3 and Ys from the Chinese factory because of the proximity to CATL. Don't know, just speculating.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, don't know. I mean, I guess we don't know.
It'd have to save them a lot for them to ship them that far, don't you think?
What, from China?
Yeah.
Not to here, because to here.
No, to Europe.
Oh, to Europe, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So if the saving was really substantial in cost, then maybe it would make sense to ship it everywhere from that one factory.
Yeah. I thought the Europe thing was a bit strange. It sort of didn't really make sense, and maybe that was almost just like they were tacking that on the end. Don't know. But yeah,
it almost seems like the LFP solution to SR costs is moot with the new cells. Am I the only one that thinks that?
Well, maybe with the higher density of the packing density because of the larger form factor, maybe it still makes sense. I don't know.
I think it would.
Because I guess because you get more energy density and power. In an ordinary Model 3, you could probably still fill it with LFP and still
get a decent range. Yes.
Still get decent, like what we'd call 350 k's.
Yeah.
Still decent. But it'd be so much cheaper than, I guess, the NMC or just the high nickel.
Yeah.
Oh, NC. Sorry, there's NCA.
NCA, yeah.
NCA.
I reckon that's what they're doing, Harold. Definitely.
Actually, sorry, not NCA, because the C's gone. That's the other thing too. Sorry, it's not NCA anymore.
That's right.
Or something, because the chromium is basically gone for what you'd call more corporate social responsibility reasons than really anything else.
You mean cobalt?
Cobalt.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Because the C in NCA is cobalt.
Cobalt.
But there's basically
it's because of all of the terrible mining.
Yes.
Because of the human. Yeah.
The
Congo.
The corporate social responsibility stuff in the Congo. Yeah. And ironically, apparently, reporters have gone to the families whose children work in those mines, saying it's okay, we're going to save you, we're going to stop all of this. And they say, well, if you do that, then we won't have any food and we'll starve, because they use their children, unfortunately, as a resource. And dare I say, an expendable one. But that's not for me to say. I mean, that's, but obviously it's not a good look.
Did you guys see the debate on the Facebook about where people would prefer to have their Model 3s come from in Australia, whether it was China or the US? And then it very quickly kind of went into that moral, ethical kind of human rights thing.
The only thing I'd say about that is that in the in China, in the Shanghai Gigafactory, most of the Model 3s are made by machines. So I don't know.
Got to go all. See you all next week.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, me too.
Care,
it's 11 o'clock here.
Oh, yes, Paul. Yeah, totally understandable.
Yeah, I got to get up early, so I better go.
Yeah, no worries. Good to see you anyway. And
yeah, nice catching up.
Come back anytime. We're here every week.
Yeah, I'll see how I go.
No worries.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
See you later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Congo thing, that's obviously the cobalt knocked on the head. but that's not a bad thing. You know, provided they make all the rest of it work with the graphite gone because of the silicon anode, cathode, whatever. You know, it's all about the gain in energy density. I don't know about lifetime, but and weight saving, and the cost. Because I think the silicon which way is it, anode or cathode for the silicon? Pete?
I can't remember.
No, I can't remember either. I was never good on anodes and cathodes.
I thought it might have been. I'll take a blind shot in the dark and say cathode, but can you Google it?
Supposed to increase the dendrites the more silicon you add. So that's one of those trade-offs, right? It's all of these different but dials you turn, and so as you add more silicon, you get more energy density, but then the dendrite rate of growth increases, which limits the cycle count.
Actually, I think that image shows it. The cathode is whether it's iron, nickel, manganese, or just nickel, and it's the silicon that has replaced the graphite, because they're intending on literally replacing all of the graphite. Because at the moment, Tesla dopes the graphite with a little bit of silicon. Now they're going to basically use raw silicon as the anode only. So that's what it is. So yeah, so there won't be any graphite. So those companies that were looking at making, I think there was some version of artificial graphite that they were making, synthetic graphite. Tesla won't be using that in their batteries, which is really wild that they, yeah, because silicon was one of those great things, but it was always hard to deal with. And they've just said, well, let's just encapsulate it and let's use the raw metallurgical silicon rather than exotic whatever it was, sulfides or whatever, and use that instead. It's a little bit like the way they're intending on extracting the lithium from the lithium clay deposit that they've got in Nevada using salt, which is sort of, you know, even more out there. That I think Elon Musk said he's not aware that anyone else has done that.
How long do you think until we're going to see those new, let's get the number right, so since we're going to say it a lot, is it 40, is it 4860?
4680.
4680. Before they have enough of those cells to put them in something other than the Tri-Motor S, like how long do you guys think?
Didn't he announce that the 10 gigawatt hour run rate prototype train line was going to be up and running, will be at nameplate in about 12 months. So that's 10 gigawatt hours, which is obviously for the Plaid Model S.
Yes. But that's what I'm saying, like once they start to build those S's, when will they have capacity for some other vehicle?
Well, they're only doing, I believe, between 40 and 50,000 S/X a year now, which is a lot less than they used to.
And that one's like 40% more than the most expensive one.
And 10 gigawatt hours would give you about, what, 130,000 packs?
Yes, that's about,
at about
well,
75 as an average.
If you say 100 kilowatt hours, because they notionally are 100, so 10 would be 100,000, wouldn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so that means in 12 months.
Would you say their global S production was?
S and X is between 40 and 50 now. I heard Rob Mauer say that. Well, I heard him say it today, but he might have said it yesterday or the day before on one of his podcasts.
Well, they're nowhere gonna, like, they're not gonna They're not even going to tickle that capacity, are they?
Yeah, so that means that there'll be surplus capacity. If they can get this prototype line to do 10 gigawatt hours in 12 months' time, they'll have more cells than they can use for the entirety of all the S's and X's, which means you could put them into threes, like certainly performance threes, if that was a thing. Oh, sorry.
Otherwise,
no, Cybertruck. Because Cybertruck is starting production late next year.
Yeah.
So that's going to gobble it up.
They're going to want a stockpile, aren't they?
So they're going to basically slam those cells in all the Cybertrucks they're going to make and the Plaid S. Yeah. Because the Plaid S will probably need it because it's got 800k 800k range.
By the time they've got that line up, they'll be building other lines, right? Like,
yes, of course, yes, but they're just basically saying, I guess they're going to prove, because don't forget that prototype line is only half their their intended nameplate capacity, which is 20 gigawatt hours per line.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And the Gigafactory a couple of years ago, it was putting out 25 gigawatt hours with 6 lines or something like that, or 5 lines a couple of years ago. So
manufacturing technology that Panasonic had perfected for them in the other site. So
yes,
they've got a ways to go, maybe.
Which had to use this huge wet process catastrophe compared to that.
Well, you say catastrophe, but like, it was cutting edge, like only a few months ago.
So was the horse 100 years ago.
Yeah, we're at a different pace of innovation, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Don't forget.
I need more money for stock.
Also,
what annoys me is that go on, Pete. Sorry, go on.
And I was just going to say, just in that presentation, looks like.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll go back to it.
They were sandbagging things a little bit because in the last interview, Elon's admitted to already using the 4680 cells in prototype vehicles since May. So since, for 6 months, they've already been using them in assumably prototypes.
Yes. Yep.
So conceivably, they have like a small handful of vehicles built like this, maybe by hand.
Yes.
Well, I'd say probably a few dozen.
Yeah. Yep. And the great thing is, I haven't got it on these slides because I only spent about 10 minutes extracting them from the video, but there's nothing stopping them from getting the larger format battery. So the tablets, there's nothing stopping them doing this format with a wet process if they wanted. If the wet process was a bit dodgy and was hard to do, they could still do the tabless electrode design with the wet process.
It doesn't seem to make sense given what they would gain if they just expend that energy in getting the other lines up, right?
No, but what I haven't done is, they showed us the marginal gains in cost, weight, and range. Cost and range, basically. And just the 4680 form factor got something like 14% extra range or something like that, and your supercharging
density.
They had that supercharging.
I think you've got the slide there.
Yes, I got the slide. Yeah, there's
next
a slide.
Next one down.
Oh, sorry. 16% range. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, 5 times the energy, 16% extra range, and they did actually say what the cost factor was as well. I think. I'm not entirely.
Someone explain that to me. Someone explain that math to me because I don't understand what I'm seeing. How can it be 5 times the energy and only 16% improvement in range? What does that even mean?
Oh, because I think the range improvement is actually because you're losing the weight of the casing, because that one battery with one case, and they did show that, I didn't capture that image, but they explained that a 2170 has, I don't know, a third or maybe a bit more, 40% of the circumference of the 4680. There's slightly different lengths, obviously. So when something grows in volume, its ratio of volume to surface area increases. There's less surface area on a larger object, which is why, for instance, elephants can overheat, whereas like a little midgie or something like that can freeze quickly because their surface area to volume is a lot greater on a smaller object. And that surface area is basically representing your metal can. So
are these numbers in different context? Like, is it possible that 5 times the energy is in the context of 2170 to 46?
Yes, it's got 5 times the energy of a 2170.
Yeah, but the 16% range improvement, because its range must be on the whole pack or the whole vehicle.
Yes. So
that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So unfortunately, these metrics are inconsistent.
They're not. Yes, exactly. They're not in the same terms.
It's got 5 times the energy of a single cell, but when you equate kilowatt hours of cells of the 2 different types of cells,
it's pack to
get
pack.
16% more range because of
the same volume. You're getting more energy density at a whole pack level. Is that right? Volumetric
the 16% range increase is because of the decrease in the weight of the casing that arises because, well, in extreme, you could get one whole massive cell.
Are you sure that number is just down to the casing, or was that number when he explained it?
Yeah, no, they explained that it was basically the weight. He actually showed, there was a diagram that showed the circumference. I think it was on that. Well, I did see, I don't know whether it was on the battery day presentation or something else, but they did explain that the amount of casing, which is only there to enclose the cell, that's what reduces. And I think that must reduce by about 16% in weight or amount. Well, weight is basically the same metric. So that's definitely the weight saving of the casing. The 5 times energy is just because it's probably 5 times the volume roughly.
Bigger cell, yeah.
But then the 6 times power is because of the reduced
resistance.
Because no, I didn't show the capture of the tabbed electrode. Oh, actually, I've got it somewhere. I thought no, I didn't. Anyway, basically the tabbed electrode, they put the tab in the center of when they roll up. I have got that image.
Yeah, it's about in the middle of the roll, isn't it?
So see here, this is one side of the battery, and this bit that's a bit out of focus is the other side, and I think that's the interlayer, that's the separator, and they're spooling it up quite quickly. So it's just a captured image. And on a tab electrode, they basically put the tab about halfway into the rolling up process. So it's kind of on average in halfway. And then all the electrons have to spin. Basically, if you unroll it,
I think they were saying it's a 5 times improvement. So 50 mil versus 250 mil.
So when it's all rolled up, and your tab is sort of halfway in the middle, it's a bit hard to see. The electrons on average have to travel along that way to the tab, and along that way, they got to go basically from one end. If this is the inside, the very smallest part of the battery, they got to travel all the way to the tab here, and then if they're on the outside of the battery, they got to go all the way across there. Whereas on the tabless, all I've got to travel is the distance from one end of the battery just to there, rather than going round and round and round and round and round, which is where this image.
So not only do they get gains from having it tabless, but because it's shorter and wider, then they get even more gains.
Yeah, so all this copper at the bottom, which has been neatly segmented and then folded over in some sort of awesome, very clever process, it means that, imagine the electrons are away from us in the screen, like they're in the third dimension, and they're just coming towards the bottom of the battery cell, and then they're just touching the case. This is the negative part,
the bus,
of the base. And there's probably a similar process at the top, which would be in the aluminium foil part, because the bottom part's the copper part, the other part's aluminium. The other huge advantage of this is that whereas before we had that image,
it makes sense why the heating profile's completely changed. Because like you said, if there's less path to travel, then there's just going to be less accumulation of thermal energy.
Lot less resistance.
Absolutely. Let me just
grab. And what's that guy's name? That Sandy was like, they're going to epoxy these together on the sides and cool them from the top and bottom. It's going to be the most structurally sound vehicle ever made.
Yes.
Like the battery is going to become the structure, like the safety structure.
Yeah, it's just insane what they're going to do. That's right. Yes, and also don't forget there was also this image of the battery pack, which actually shows that the conventional pack has a batteries quite close to the edge, whereas this one you can afford, because there's a much higher packing density, you can afford to have them closer into the center of the car, which he spoke about, the polar moment of inertia.
Of inertia, yeah.
Which he explained as the skater with the arms out, arms in. So it'll corner a lot better, but also it's got more protection for side impacts.
Yep.
So the probability of it damaging the pack on a collision will be a lot less.
And that whole pack will be just one massive rigid brick, which will probably withstand, any sort of collision.
Yes.
But less likely.
They get to take the structural member out of the center of the 4-module pack now.
Yes.
Because
yes, there's no beams. This thing's just a laminate.
All of them.
Like he explained. It's like having, or maybe it was Sandy Munro, I'm not sure. It's like
it is Sandy.
Yeah, having carbon fiber top and bottom and having a honeycomb in the center. And it's super duper stiff. But getting back to that battery, if you compare the tabless to the tab one, the heat has to, if it's all generated all throughout the battery, it has to actually go from the inside all the way to the outside can, but go through all these insulating interlayers and radiate outwards to the edges of the can, where you've got that fluted heatsink with the fluid going through it, zigzagging all between each of the cells.
With only a very small proportion of the external area making contact.
Exactly.
Whereas they're going to get way more of the total surface area contacting the cooling system.
Yes, whereas when you have plate cooling, which you can sort of see in that battery pack, well, they don't really show it, but you can imagine it. Well, this wouldn't be the cooling channels per se, but it would be a bit like it with the cooling plate. I mean, it could be cooling channels almost. So you're just cooling the bottom of it, which is basically touching all of this copper.
Like a big heat sink.
So then the heat of the battery, rather than having to go, from the inside outwards, just goes from the top, or on average the middle, down to the bottom.
Well, Sandy Munro was saying it didn't make sense to have the coolant, anywhere but the top and the bottom. Yeah, because that's where most of the heat, that's the avenue for it.
The only thing that interests me is at the bottom, you'd have to have, on the cold plate, you'd have to have an electrically insulating layer to the cold plate, because obviously these batteries, they're not always in parallel. A lot of them are in series combinations. And unless you had insulating fluid, you couldn't segment the cold plate. Like you could segment the cold plate.
It's going to be a piece of art. This machined plate is going to have all of these channels cut in it to isolate the change, you know, where the series connections are. It's going to look amazing.
But then the fluid, but the cold plate will have to be insulated to the bottom of the case of the battery.
Mm. So they'll have to have some other material that makes it watertight. Yeah.
Well, they'll have to have
some other material that.
Yeah, that's electrically insulating, but not thermally, which is a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it with diamond. Diamond is one of the best thermal conductors, even though it's insulating. But to get a vapor deposition of diamond is hard work. So they probably wouldn't do that, and it'd be expensive. So they'd have some simpler solution to it.
Silicon.
Thin layer, like a thin sheet. Yep. Yep. So
can I digress for a second before I disappear?
Absolutely.
What's the story on Sunday at Wesley?
Oh, so it's on the website.
I've seen it, but do you take your car in there, or do you park down the road somewhere and walk?
Park down the road and just walk in. I think it's a gold coin donation, or maybe it's a bit more than that.
$10 unless you're an old bugger like me, and you get $9.50.
Right. So so there is an admission fee, and then you just rock up whenever you want, because we'll be there sort of all day, or many of us will be there all day or most of the day. It's a little bit different to a normal casual meetup, but it's a good sort of event to have cars and people there. So
yeah.
Okay. And like I said earlier, you know, Nigel has got his car sort of on the prompting of seeing cars there and getting a rush of blood to his head and going, I might just go and make that ridiculous purchase, which he's never regretted since.
There you go. I don't think any of us have.
No. And I just want my Cybertruck, so hurry up.
What do you save up for a Plaid? Isn't that phenomenal acceleration?
For a plane? Oh, Plaid.
Plaid.
Oh, Plaid, is it?
Yeah, well, the Plaid is only, in inverted commas, about 35 grand more than I paid for my car when I bought it.
It was about $250,000 or something, roughly. Is that right?
Yeah, 250.
No, it's 190 grand.
No, 257 landed in WA if you get FSD. So if you order everything standard, but you add FSD, it's 257,000 in WA, including everything, all inclusive. In Poverty Pearl White.
Do you get special health insurance for ophthalmology to get your eyes put back in place after you accelerate with the thing?
It's great if you're short-sighted. No, I forget which way it goes. You might be able to see the clearest when you're pulling 1.5 Gs or whatever it is that you're pulling, doing 0 to 100 in 2 seconds.
I don't know how many of you guys. I don't know how many of you guys in this call this question applies to, but do you feel like it's a bit of a it's a less incentive to go and spend the extra, I don't know how much money on the Roadster now if the Plaid S is so similar to that spec?
Yeah, but it is at the moment, but I reckon once they release the Roadster, it will be just that next level up again.
But it's diminishing returns, right? So it'll be smaller and smaller improvements for massive chunks of money.
Yeah, but that's how every car works. You know, if you want to go a couple of seconds faster, you go from a $40,000 car to a $100,000 car. You know, but if you want to go that last half a second faster, you got to spend millions and millions of bucks.
The Roadster's going to fly, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
With the SpaceX package.
So as you can see, it's $243,212 for Poverty Pearl White, everything standard and not full self-driving, or
it's 189 without all the on-roads. Just shows you how much luxury car tax and everything. The starting price is 189.
Sorry, sure. I'll go back to no autopilot, no FSD. Yeah, 192,865.
Yeah.
And it tells you here on roads is $50,000 with 34 and a half on LCT.
Yeah.
And who's your friend? Who's your friend who ordered the Roadster, Harold? Have you had this discussion with them yet?
No. I mean, I guess the Roadster. Well, look, if you got lots of dough, the Roadster's a sports car. It's just it's a two-door sports car. It's a different product, isn't it, than a five-door family sedan, 5-seat family sedan. So I guess even if the Roadster was, well, it's going to cost another $100 grand. I think the Roadster's going to be $350 by the time it gets here. Actually, doesn't it say? I think there is a Roadster thing on Tesla's website. Roadster.
There's 326 for Founder Series.
Right.
Is that Australian? That must be Australian dollars.
Reserve now.
What's the non-Founder Series? I don't think there's any price for the non-Founders one.
319, but I don't even know if that's actually. Is that including on roads? I just don't.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, who knows?
It's not clear.
Not broken down.
No. So, look, as a product, it's a different product. Regardless, even if it's only like 0.2 of a second faster, it's a different product. I guess. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you're still waiting for a Roadster, and if you can just get a Model S that does 0 to 100 in 2 seconds, but then a performance Model S does it in 2.5. So it's just a couple of blinks of an eye extra.
True. Do you reckon there'll be like a 3-motor 3? A motor 3?
They do a 3-motor 3.
Hey, how's that? A 3?
Do they do a 3-motor 3?
Oh, no.
That's my question. Will they? Do you think they'll do one?
A Plaid 3.
Plaid 3.
Bloody hell. The ordinary 3P is good.
It's ridiculous.
It depends on whether they can fit the two motors side by side within the constraints of the width of the 3. It's probably
they got all that space with the new battery, maybe.
No, it's the space between the wheels. That's the issue.
Longitudinal space.
It's
the
maybe. Track. Yeah, it's the track of the wheels, which is probably a few inches, which might be too much or too little or whatever. Don't know.
They might make a pancake motor.
Well, you never know. That's right. You never know.
Like the pancake stepper motors.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. You can make a higher diameter and shorter.
Yeah.
I guess you could say in a 3, why would you bother? Because you might as well just buy an S.
It wouldn't.
You just go and buy an S instead if you want to rock it.
It depends how much cheaper it is.
At that level, does it make a lot of difference?
Yeah, maybe not. Right. And maybe they want to protect that profit margin by keeping it in the premium tier of their product line, perhaps.
Well, the S and the X has already been diluted by probably a bit too much by the Model 3 and the Y. So this would.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, even if I had that money, it's not as desirable as the 3, in my opinion.
Up until
except for the specs.
Well, up until very recently, an S or an X had zero hope of getting anywhere near the 3's charging rate.
Yeah.
And even now they're sort of saying, is it 200 and something kilowatts maybe? I think they're trying to get out of it with thicker cabling, but they haven't got the battery chemistry or whatever right for it. So an S and an X is a compromise to a 3 in charging spec. You know, personally, I still think the Pinnacle is a winner, but then that's just personal opinion, you know, as opposed to the one screen that the 3's got. But, you know, I guess if you're on autopilot, you're not really looking at the screen much, because who cares? It'll always drive the correct speed limit, usually, often, sometimes.
Do you think that I was going to say, do you think that the Plaid S will look like the prototypes? But that's probably the cheapest way to do it. They don't have to retool.
I think the Plaid, no, I think it's very plausible that before the Plaid S comes out, that they'll have a refresh of the interior and exterior of the S.
So you think that's what's going to happen?
Yes, it's just that they've announced it, and all they've got to show
is their prototypes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even if they had prototypes of the horizontal 17-inch screen and all that sort of stuff, they wouldn't announce it, because that would then kill current S sales. Because people would wait, the old Osborne effect, they'd wait till next year and see what happened. But they'll probably announce sometime next year or early next year that they've got a refresh of the interior, because with
if they're going to do that, they might as well re-engineer everything to bring it up to kind of up to spec with the 3.
Well, what they'll do is they'll get rid of the removable battery pack for starters. So they'll completely change the packaging. In fact, they'll probably implement the that mono battery structural. Oh, well, that's what they're going to do. Obviously, they're going to have. If I can
that's
find
how they get. That's how they get that capacity and range number.
Yes.
That's a good point. Like we go and see the videos of that thing at the Nürburgring, but that's actually not what those that doesn't have those specs. No. Much like the Roadster didn't have those specs.
And don't forget, they flared out.
Roadsters.
They flared out the wheel arches and all that sort of stuff to get the bigger tires. But that's what the new S will have, is this structure here. There's no doubt, and they'll have that battery pack set up.
Yeah, it's a completely different style of pack, isn't it?
In fact, I haven't seen. That's obviously the Model 3.
That'll be a 3.
That's a 3. The S and X is even worse than that. There's 16 modules. But the thing is, the S and X, you literally just unbolt 18 bolts or whatever it is, and the whole thing just unplugs from the car, and the car is still structural, and then you can just bolt another one in. So the Plaid S will not have that, and it's probably highly plausible. So I guess that would have to, right, so the metric of that is, once they've got their prototype line running at, let's call it 5 gigawatt hour nameplate or run rate reliably, then they will probably put those cells in S's and X's in a refreshed form. So they'll do the whole lot in one hit. And then obviously
they're essentially creating 2 new cars.
Yes. Or they might kill the X and keep the S. But then the X
I think investors would want to know if they're going to build a new car. This is the same as building a new car, what you're proposing. Because there's only so many things they can do concurrently, and we know that they're going to put up the semi lines and the Cybertruck lines.
Yeah, but like Elon Musk said, as Tesla grows, the rate at which it builds more factories will be increasing. So as he said, normally large companies, the larger they get, the slower they grow. But Tesla will be the opposite. The larger they get, the faster they'll grow. So you're right, it's insane. They've got Giga Shanghai, which is almost complete, sort of, getting there. Berlin, which is halfway there, or a third the way there. Texas, which is just slightly, gravel pile reinforced land. And they've got new models. They've got the model, let's call it 2, that's going to be designed. And I think Elon Musk has confirmed there's going to be Shanghai and Berlin are each going to create different unique models. So there won't just be one new unique model. There'll be possibly the Model 2 and maybe a Model 1, which is like the little city car, and the
subcompact,
and the subcompact, and the semi, and the Cybertruck. And Roadster's unimportant because that's just.
So are you saying that? Are you trying to suggest that if the redesign of the S counts as a new product?
No, it's not a new product. No, it's just a redesign. But it'll be basically, it will have this format battery pack. Absolutely, it makes it makes zero sense if you're going to radically change a car. You're going to put this battery pack in it, and you're going to put that. You're going to have a single casting front and rear, and you're going to do.
I'm agreeing with you. If you're going to do all of those things, you have radically changed it. It's a new product.
It is.
Right? You're going to change the interior and the exterior. It's a new product.
Yes.
But I think what you're suggesting is that they are doing so many new products concurrently that it's fine.
And it is, and that's the insane part about it. And the thing is, don't forget. The Model Ys originally had the two castings at the back.
It only took a few months for them to.
Yeah, Model 3 had that catastrophe of 100 pieces of metal that had to be riveted, glued, lasered, welded, stuff.
Yeah.
They then went to a 50-50 split on the early Model Ys. Well, they've already done somewhere.
Their third iteration on the bottom half of the vehicle in as many, like in 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah, it's just crazy how much they're doing. I've got it somewhere here with their casting machine that's in the car park, or not car park, in the backyard of the of Fremont factory. That they had some great video of it. Injecting here, and within only a couple of dozen milliseconds, the heated die cast material goes all the way right to the extremity of the casting of the mold.
Wow, that's pretty
cool, huh?
Quick.
And he said they pull a vacuum on it, so there's no air to displace, and it's only, I think it was 30, it might have been 34 milliseconds that it takes to go from here all the way to there. And then they said that they created a new alloy which doesn't need heat treating, because he said this casting, apparently normal castings, when you cast it, you then have to actually machine all the accurate faces where you want to mount something to it accurately. I mean, the general stuff doesn't have to be accurate, but this thing is designed so there are no fiducial marks. There is no machining, no finishing, and no heat treating, because heat treating on a cast that size just bends it out of shape. I think Elon Musk said it's a bit like a potato chip. So he said they're the only car company in the world that has created their own alloy specifically for die casting. And he said that this thing will need zero finishing. When it comes out of the mold, that's you put it straight in the line and that's it, unmodified.
Sandy Munro said even before Battery Day that Tesla's got its own materials research R&D division.
Yes.
So, yeah, for a while they've been working on new alloys, and incredible.
And that's the thing that makes this company so disruptive, is because, well, I think they're the only car company in the world that produces their own seats, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, they produce their own motors. They produce their own parts. You know, they're so massively vertically integrated.
Imagine when they start getting into the finer details of mining life cycle, and they start like threatening existing mining companies with the optimizations that they're obviously going to make. You know what I mean?
Well, it's I think it's going to happen Yeah, because it'll end up being cheaper to recycle a battery because the battery will have such a high concentration of all, you know, your lithium, your nickel, your whatever. That it'll be cheaper. It'll be much more cost effective to recycle a battery than to mine the stuff from the ground.
Raw materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they say, recycled cells have got 20% nickel as opposed to 1.2.
There you go.
So you don't have to shift tons and tons of dirt and acid treat it and leach it and do all that sort of stuff when all your resources in the batteries. And I think Elon Musk said that basically after 15 years or so, once the number of batteries are in steady state, then you don't need to do any more further mining, or not much.
Yep.
There's always a bit of wastage because, you know, I guess certain things will get destroyed or catch fire or do whatever, and you can't really recover them. But in general, you'll be able to wholly recycle what you've built.
So we're going to get to saturation of global human transport. We're going to saturate the global human transport, the terrestrial global human transport machine. We're going to saturate it essentially with autonomous electric vehicles.
Well, I think you need 150 terawatt hours of batteries to basically convert the entire world in all modes to renewable energy. So you only have to produce 150 terawatt hours of batteries, and once you've done that, then you basically everything's converted. And then I guess every 10 years you just got to produce, well, every year you just got to produce the replacement stock for those items. But you can do that like on this diagram here. You can see that in 2025, that's how many batteries they're going to have for recycling, is the 2015 production. But in 2035, you'll have this many. That's what's going to be produced in 2025. So that's 1.2 terawatt hours per year. Well, whatever. Yeah, 1.15 terawatt hours in 2025.
What's that going to do to the aftermarket cost of EV cells?
Oh, you mean like a la that second-hand battery pack that's available now?
It's going to be completely different, isn't it?
It's going to
be a lot more valuable.
Well, they'll make them less
valuable.
Oh, well, the thing is,
they're going to be way more valuable. They're not going to go and create this secondary, inexpensive stationary storage market if they are so in demand by the OEM.
Oh, you mean as a resource to recycle?
Correct. Yeah.
And don't forget, as you start decreasing your mining of raw materials, your economies of scale are going to start diminishing as well. So, which would make the battery pack more valuable again.
Oh, like sort of like in the sense that people forget how to mine them because they haven't done it for so long or haven't done large quantities.
That's
so
correct.
Yeah. Shut down. Yes. Yeah. But when that's in a steady state, which would be in
10, 15 years.
15 years time.
Yeah.
Presuming that all manufacturers recycle, but then Tesla might just become one of the bigger recycling companies and might recycle other people's batteries too.
Well, who's the guy that used to work at Tesla who's just started up his own recycling?
JB Straubel.
Straubel, yeah.
There
you go. Yeah.
Which is interesting because that's what's his company? Something Wood. No, Redwood. Redwood
Industries, maybe.
I think it's Redwood. Yeah, because I do the double O with an infinity sign. He was notably absent of any mention, and yet apparently Amazon, I think it's Amazon, have invested in his company, several dozen $1 million. But who knows? I mean, the way Tesla or Elon sort of said it, he basically said that Tesla are going to do their own recycling plant. But that's not necessarily to say that they might not be cooperating with Redwood, or maybe not at all. Maybe they don't need that technology. If Redwood actually has any technology, Tesla will probably do it under first principles themselves. Unless there's already a tacit deal to buy Redwood, which is almost like a, what would you call a golden golden parachute?
Golden handshake.
Well, yeah. Well, it's
insider trading.
No. Well, it's not like normally get a golden parachute when you leave, and they give you like a big payout. But in a sense, he's left.
Oh, I know what you're getting at.
And they're going to maybe he sort of left on a wink or a promise that they would just buy his company anyway. But then again, Elon's Tesla. Well,
Elon's too pragmatic to make promises like that.
Exactly. Elon Musk is going to say, well, it was great while you were here. You're awesome and you made lots of money and whatever. And, good luck with what you're doing. And we're just going to do our own thing. And if we're better than you, then you'll just die anyway, because that's just business.
Exactly.
So, yes, that's right. He's not...
he's totally a machine, eh?
Yes. Yes. And I dare say he treats his employees like machines too. Because, they're working hard, just like Harry today. Probably still, well, they wouldn't be working now, but yeah, Tesla gets their pound of flesh out of all their employees.
Well, if you're a machine, then you don't care, do you?
Part of the, yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so
the singularity has happened, and we're in the simulation, and he's just running it from the outside.
And, yeah, well, don't forget the other theory, which is that everything that has happened and is going to happen in the universe, like basically what we are perceiving is just a stylus going through the groove of history, and there is no such thing as what's that called? Independence of thought and whatever. We're just
actualization. Yeah.
No, not self-actualization. That's the levels of whatever that philosophical thing.
Maslow's hierarchy.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory.
Yes. No, this is the theory of literally time and all that sort of stuff is like nothing we are doing is with self-choice. It is just all predetermined.
Oh, it's all predetermined.
Yeah. And what we feel is what we experience as time passing is effectively like the groove, the stylus going through the groove, reading the track. So that, if I went like this, I didn't choose to do that. I was always going to do that. It just felt like I chose to do that. But then but you can't do that experiment, so it's meaningless. But that's a bit deep at 10 minutes to 10.
Unless you get the choice between the red and the blue pill. Someone comes up.
That's the perfect time.
And the point is, you did take one of them, but perhaps someone observing the record from a different place or putting a different stylus already knew that you were going to take the red pill or the blue pill. And doesn't matter. As long as
that's where you get the deja vus.
Well, I actually heard to the Matrix. I actually heard that deja vu. It's thought that it's your brain verifying its own memory. It's like a memory test that your brain does, and it somehow creates these deja vus, and it's almost like a self-confirmation that your memory's working correctly. There's some
like the cyclic redundancy check.
Sort of. It's sort of like it does a little memory loop, and then it feels like it's thought of it it's deja vu, but it's not. It's just like a memory test. But then who really knows? Doesn't matter, does it? But anyway, that's very
I don't think mine's working.
Sorry?
I don't think mine's working.
Yeah, so I think the problem is we all have eMMCs, and many of us are MCU1 versions that have faulty memory that goes with age.
Yeah, all right. We're kind of at the finite end of the total right count or something.
Yes, and these things probably don't help. Although I always think that they flush out the bad cells.
Anyway, I think I'll be leaving.
Cool. No worries, Nigel. Take care. We'll
See
catch you next
Sunday.
next week. Oh, Sunday. We'll see you Sunday.
I'll be there Sunday.
Cool.
Okay. See you guys.
Take care.
See you, Nigel. I might be with Nigel. I better go and
Yeah, well, I guess we
jump
could.
back in the caravan.
Yeah, cool. It's probably a good time to maybe adjourn anyway, I reckon, till maybe next Wednesday. We'll do a bit of a shorter one for Joe and Damon, who allegedly watch these YouTube videos religiously in small chunks or whatever. So yeah, it might be a good time to adjourn to next week, perhaps.
All right.
So
Good.
Everyone take care, and
Yep.
we'll catch you next time. Thanks for coming.
See you all, guys. Have a good
See
night.
you guys.
Later.
All right, good night.
Peace.
Night.